Alright, YouTube, it's time to talk about polling again because increasingly I'm getting a lot of people who are shitposting on my videos talking about how the polls are skewed, they need to unskew them, talking about long room or whatever it happens to be. So we're going to look at a little bit of recent political history and figure out why this is a retarded thing to try to do. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't generally work. You can talk about rigged polls all you want, but to suggest that there is an oversampling, sampling bias in one direction or the other may or may not hold true whatsoever. Take a look, for instance, at the 2014 midterms. Democrats, in their own unskewed internal polling aggregates, suggested that they had 2 or 3 more points than they actually did. And it turned out that the real skew was further in favor of the Democrats than that. And so they ended up getting crushed during those midterms when they expected that they would almost break even. They did not expect to lose so many seats in the Senate. They did not expect to perform as poorly as they did. And so what ended up happening is that all of these Democrats that believed sort of the DNC's own internal aggregation were let down on midterm night because they realized they had lost several races, that they had been told they would actually win, that they would retain those seats or gain new seats that they ended up not retaining or gaining. And so they felt bad about it naturally because they got completely steamrolled. Rewind to 2012 with Mitt Romney. We all remember Karl Rove's epic breakdown on election night because his internal polling, the aggregation that he had done from firms and with number manipulation that he felt approximated reality, turned out to be wildly inaccurate by a good 3 or 4 points. What he had done is increase the importance of Rasmussen, which is about the least reliable polling firm you can possibly imagine in the modern era. There are plenty of internet polling firms at this point that are better than Rasmussen. I don't know why it's even included, really, in RCP anymore, considering their abysmal track record. It should be cut from RCP until they can fix their methodology. It's still using landlines and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I'm sure that most of the younger generation has these landline phones. What are these things that you speak of? It sounds like ancient technology. His own internal polling painted an overly rosy picture for Romney that showed him winning Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, Nevada, all of these wonderful swing states. And the only one he actually got, I believe, was North Carolina. And so all of these other states went for Obama. Now, it was quite clear that his methodology was wrong. And the problem is this. When Longroom or one of these firms is unskewing the polls, what they're doing, number one, is looking back to the 2014 midterms saying, oh, those polls oversampled Democrats by this many points, so we'll unskew the polls in the other direction by that many points, painting an extremely overly optimistic picture of where Trump stands in the polling without any actual foreknowledge that the sampling is wrong, because methodology only goes so far in explaining why polling aggregates would be wrong. It could be that they're right. It could be that right now polls are heavily skewed in favor of the Democrats and they're all fundamentally wrong, that a handful of optimistic Trump outliers are actually the real deal and that everything else is wrong. It could be, though, and this is why attempting to unskew polls doesn't work. It could be that the opposite is true and that Hillary's 15, 20 points ahead of Trump right now. Now, I don't believe that to be the case. I think that when you aggregate the polls in RCP, generally you're getting a fairly accurate indicator of what's going on. When they try to fixate on Senate or House races, wherein you might only have 4 or 5 polls conducted in a month, it can be less accurate than when you have 4 or 5 polls conducted in a week for the presidential race. The fact is, and this is the clear and simple truth, the concept that the polls are repeatedly oversampling Democrats is wrong. The fact is that there are more self-professed partisan Democrats in the country than self-professed partisan Republicans. What they should be doing is ignoring these partisan groups that they already know will vote for one candidate or the other, and they should begin just polling self-identified independents. Now, that does paint a rosier picture for Trump than the current aggregate of polling. Because the fact that there are more self-professed Democrats, not all of which are completely on board with Hillary, by the way, in the country, the fact that they are more numerous than self-professed Republicans, registered Republicans, likely Republican voters, whatever you want to term this, matters less when you start to consider the fact that Trump has a massive advantage with independent voters, especially because independent voters right now form a larger chunk of the electoral vote than they have in past elections. The number of people that claim party affiliation is far lower than it was in 2008 or 2012. That being said, though, attempts to unskew these polls will not work. When you go to Longroom or when you go to any site, whether it's a more Democrat or Republican friendly sort of site or firm, and you get unskewed numbers from them, you have no idea whatsoever whether that's accurate or not. When people say, oh, well, they're oversampling Democrats, there are more Democrats in the country than there are partisan Republicans. Yes, Democratic registration is way down in the primaries this year. Trust me, I understand that. Hillary is not pulling in a great deal of attention. Her rallies look like ghost towns. That's going to hurt her in the election. It's a reason I give Trump the advantage going forward, regardless of him being a few points behind right now. But he is behind. With the samples that are taken by these firms, he is behind. Now, will independents emerge from the woodwork, vote for him at heavy levels, and give him the election? I think yes, after the debates. But you are deluding yourself if you're simply pulling a Karl Rove and you're ignoring what happened with firms and groups that trusted supposedly unskewed numbers in the last midterms, in the last election, and in the midterms before that. For 3 cycles in a row, people have tried to do this. The Democrats, every midterm, seem to paint an overly optimistic picture of how many seats they're going to retain, and they keep getting wiped out. The Republicans painted an overly rosy picture of how Mitt Romney would do and said on election night, well, there's still a chance that he'll win. Yeah, maybe a little less than 50-50, but, you know, he's got Ohio, he's got Florida, he'll do fine. He lost these states, largely. And that became the problem. Thus you had Karl Rove, right when the results came in from Ohio, storming off set and going back to the offices to berate people and ask them what the hell was going on. Because he had deluded himself with unskewed polls that were not accurate. It turned out that they were actually not skewed at all. The polling aggregate was fundamentally correct. Obama was leading in the states that he ended up winning. Now you can point out, well, Hillary will commit election fraud. Yeah, it's possible that she will, especially in a state like Virginia. But pointing out again the other thing here that I've been saying for some time. Because the two-party system has had things locked down for so long and prevented so many people from thinking that a third-party option or a rogue candidate was a good idea or even feasible in an electoral sense, they haven't had to rig a general election in a hell of a long time. By the way, in Florida, it wasn't rigged by the DNC, it wasn't rigged by the RNC, it was state officials rigging that in Florida in the year 2000, and that's the last time that that was really involved. They don't have the apparatus and the resources and the legal protection necessary to really do much in the way of rigging a general election. If they could rig the general election, why do you think that they rigged the primaries in the Democratic Party, which they clearly did? Why do you think that they had to pull out all the stops to commit essentially what amounts to mass fraud in order to get Hillary Clinton elected? Yes, there will be rigging in the general. However, it'll be on both sides if it's present at all. Mostly what you get is gerrymandering. That's real. You get congressional districts being selectively redrawn. That's essentially what voter fraud in the United States generally boils down to. I know, oh, dead people voted, illegal immigrants voted. Not really. No, not real. Not at large enough numbers to swing so much as even a competitive state, honestly. It's a non-issue. It has been a non-issue. I understand that a lot of people want to make it this big boogeyman of, oh, 10 million illegals are going to vote in this election, giving Texas to Hillary or something. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. You look at the numbers, the fraud is just not there. You're deluding yourself. Trump is a few points behind Hillary. That being said, don't worry about it, because it was expected she was going to be ahead. She's fucking Hillary Clinton. She hasn't made enough mistakes yet to fucking hang her own campaign off a tree. She will, though. Wait until the debates. My expectation, my analysis during the primaries was spot on all the way through except for Wisconsin. I am telling you that it is not strange to me at all that Trump, who is better spoken and running a more coherent campaign regardless of what the media wants to say, is behind right now. Specifically because he is being browbeaten 24/7 by literally every segment of the media, including traditionally Republican-friendly outlets like Fox News. They are constantly hammering away at his credibility. And the fact that he's not at single digits right now is a testament to his hardened support. He grows his independent support and pulls back the rest of the partisan Republican base on debate night. And until then, he will probably remain behind. Additionally, the last round of polling shows a closer gap between Trump and Hillary. It doesn't show Hillary with some magic 15 or 10-point lead, which was never true to begin with. Those were outlier polls. The same as Rasmussen in some of these polls, showing Trump still roughly tied with her after he did suffer from being hammered by the media, after Hillary did give her DNC acceptance speech and absorb some of the Democratic base back that had sort of been jettisoned off to the side because of what happened with the DNC leaks. That will continue to grind down her campaign. Additionally, another thing that's going to grind her down is her health problems. She doesn't look well. She is tired. She appears unable to now at some certain times even walk on her own. She is a sickly old woman with brain issues. That is going to grind her down. She's not going to perform well at the debates. I don't think that she's mentally aware enough to do so. For her partisan base, they're never going to abandon her. They'll vote for her because she has a D after her name. For the independents, including a large proportion of left-leaning independents, who are in some cases former Democrats, who don't like what happened with the DNC, they're going to begin flocking to Gary Johnson and Donald Trump. And that gives Trump the election. It gives the Libertarian Party an enormous springboard for the next election and third-party true viability. And it cripples the Democrats. It makes them look like a laughingstock because supposedly the party of the people and we need to prevent wars and protect the environment has completely flip-flopped on all of these issues and is now essentially a jingoistic corporate front. That is what is going to sink her campaign. When people become aware of this, that will be a bigger concern to them, I think, than Trump saying Mexico will pay for a wall, or Trump saying get that baby out of here in a half-joking way. But no, don't try to unskew the polls. When you rant to me, when you rant to somebody who properly analyzed the polls all throughout the primaries and almost always got the results right on both sides, and who predicted before Super Tuesday that Trump was probably going to be the Republican nominee, back when there was virtually nobody in the mainstream media, certainly, that thought that that was going to happen. When you try to tell me about analyzing polls, I chuckle, because I've been analyzing them, and I've been right. I'm telling you, Trump is behind. But it doesn't matter. It never did matter. That's the fucking point. It doesn't matter if he has to come from behind. He certainly did that when Jeb Bush was still polling in the 30s very early on before Trump had really done anything in the race. Well, he seemed to do fine with that. He seemed to hammer Ted Cruz out of the way pretty effectively. You know, any of the people that he hammered out of the way during the primaries was a more time-tested, able debater than Hillary Clinton. Rubio, better speaker than Hillary. Ted Cruz, better speaker than Hillary. Jeb, better speaker than Hillary Clinton. Even if muddled and vague, so is Hillary. That's going to be a problem. Hillary Clinton is Jeb Bush plus 20 extra years of age plus a D after her name. She's Jeb Bush. It's going to be easy for him. Just watch. Trust me. I don't think there's a very big chance that Hillary's your next president. I don't even know if she'll survive. The way she's acting, the weakness and sickliness that she shows, can't walk on her own, has to be surrounded by Secret Service at the slightest perturbation, can hardly get 100 people to come hear her speak, or 200 people. Shits her pants, apparently, and falls over. And I don't know. Her health is fairly obviously not that great. Is she even going to be able to continue campaigning is my question. Or is she going to have no choice but to drop out? Is she going to fall over while speaking, hit her head, spend a week in the hospital, and her campaign, by the time she wakes back up, will be fundamentally over? The possibility exists that that could happen. And then what are they going to do? What do they do? Put Tim Kaine in there? Say, oh, well, you were her running mate. We accept you. Okay, now you're the presidential candidate. Tim Kaine for president. Do you think the Democrats are going to respond well to that? Who would his running mate be? Elizabeth Warren? Bernie Sanders? John Kerry? Obama? Who's he going to choose? Oh, my running mate. Now Hillary's the running mate. Yeah, she's in a hospital. It's okay. She's a Clinton. It just doesn't work that way, folks. It just doesn't work that way. It's not going to happen. Hillary Clinton has so much baggage weighing down her would-be ship of state that it is threatening to capsize at any given moment. Trump, meanwhile, has never been in politics before. Any dead weight on his campaign is coming from what he's done in the last year or so. That's a lot less stuff to actually weigh him down. That's about all. Peace out.